It's the Martin and Dean Chronicles. Ready for laughs and cheers? One's a geezer, one's a queer. Find out who on the Martin and Dean Chronicles. Tune in, don't delay. Martin and Dean will make your day. Chapter 5, Mischievous Pranks and the 80s Flashback. 2 more weeks of lockdown. Dean was done. Stir-crazy, bored and itching for some mischief, he decided to spice things up. That's when inspiration struck. Pranks. Harmless, well, mostly harmless pranks. It was time to mess with Martin, his unsuspecting poof. Late one night, while Martin was at work, Dean crept into the bathroom like a mischievous goblin. He grabbed Martin's toothpaste, emptied a bit, and, after a quick glance to make sure Martin was still out, added a warm, golden, personal touch. The sound of liquid hitting the tube made him stifle a giggle. He gave it a good shake to mix things up, screwed the cap back on, and wiped the tube clean. Standing back, Dean admired his handiwork, imagining Martin's morning routine. Squeeze, brush, sudden horror.
Ha ha ha, this shall be some classic banter. Brighten up this lockdown boredom.
The next morning, Dean was jolted awake by a string of muffled curses from the bathroom. He grinned. Showtime. Dean strolled into the bathroom, doing his best to look concerned.
Everything all right, Martin?
Martin spun around, his toothbrush mid-air, eyes wide with disbelief.
Is this piss? It tastes like, oh, it's piss. It's piss, isn't it?
His lips twitching as he tried not to throw up. Dean leaned against the doorframe, grinning like a cat who'd gotten the cream.
Ha ha, pissy teeth.
Martin felt queasy, the taste still in his mouth. Pure disgust on his face.
Oh, Dean, I was almost sick, you little bugger.
Dean wasn't done. His next plan. An elaborate culinary fake-out. After a quick trip to the fridge, he grabbed a fresh jar of peanut butter and swapped half of it for a suspiciously similar-looking stuff. Dean squatted over the jar. Wait a minute, what is he doing? Dean started to take a fucking shit in the jar. Oh, this is really happening? Okay, seriously, Dean just took a shit in a jar of peanut butter. This bloke is a fucking crazy geezer. Top marks for the prank. Dean then carefully smoothed it over. He made sure the top layer was pristine. That evening, as Martin made a midnight snack, Dean lurked nearby, trying to contain his laughter.
Want some toast, my love?
Oh, no, thanks, I'm good.
Martin slathered the peanut butter onto his toast, took a hearty bite, and froze mid-chew. Dean popped his head around the corner.
Everything all right, Martin?
Martin spat the bite into the sink, his face twisted in betrayal.
Dean, what the hell is this? Is that shit? It tastes like shit. Oh my God, it's shit.
Martin started to throw up all over the floor. Dean, however, leaned against the doorframe, clutching his stomach with laughter.
Ha ha ha, shitty teeth. Now clean that fucking mess up, poof.
Dean's final prank. His piece de resistance involved Martin's prized hair gel. Martin loved his hair slicked back just right. His vanity was Dean's perfect target. Dean replaced the gel with a generous mixture of a white creamy substance and a dash of green food colouring for an extra touch of gross. The next morning, Dean waited on the couch as Martin got ready for work. A few minutes later, he heard a scream from the bathroom.
Dean!
Dean bolted to the bathroom, struggling to keep a straight face. Martin stood in front of the mirror, his hair dripping with a slimy green mess.
What the hell is in my gel?
Dean shrugged innocently.
Maybe it's just a new formula?
Martin sniffed the air and recoiled.
Oh, you didn't. Let me guess. You're going to laugh and call me cummy hair?
Dean looked Martin dead in the eye.
Don't be so disgusting, you silly poof. I wouldn't jack off into your hair gel. You're just disgusting. It's mayonnaise.
Martin looked embarrassed and ashamed. He then groaned but couldn't help cracking a smile.
You're impossible.
Admit it, I'm the legend of pranks.
Oh, Dean, what you like? I got to clean my hair and get off to work. Just behave yourself tonight. No more pranks, please.
Dean just laughed. Then Martin, as per usual, deadlocked the front door as he went to work. Dean wandered around the flat, thinking to himself, what can I do now? Dean was fucking bored of being stuck in this flat. While Martin was at work, Dean decided to dig around in some old boxes in the cupboard. It was either that or drink himself silly. He opened up a dusty photo album and flicked through it absent-mindedly until he stopped at a picture that made him bark out a laugh. It was him, his older brother Baz, and his best mate Pinson from back in the day, 1983 to be exact. All three of them looked like rejects from an 80s boy band. Baz had a mullet that could scare off a wild boar. Pinson was missing a tooth, and Dean had the fashion sense of a blind man on acid.
Bloody hell, what a night.
Dean muttered, staring at the photo. He could almost smell the booze and kebab grease again as he was swept into the memory. It was a brisk Friday night in 1983. Dean, Baz and Pinson were strutting through town like they owned the place, half cut already and looking for trouble. They were on their way to the Nag's Head, their local dive where the beer was warm, the floors were sticky and the fights were frequent. As they stumbled along, Dean's sharp eye caught a petite blonde lass with a killer figure and cracking jugs hopping into a bright red camper van. He elbowed Baz and smirked.
Oi, Baz, isn't that Chris Manning and the bald Welsh Chris's shaggin' wagon?
Baz squinted at the van like he was trying to solve a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, it is. Wait, hold on a sec. Dean, ain't that Lynn?
Dean freezes mid-chuckle.
Well, I'll be. That's Lynn, all right. Bloody hell, she does love camper vans. The little tart. She's going to be in a classic Chris sandwich tonight, ain't she?
Baz wheezed with laughter.
Aye, getting serviced like an old transit. She'll end up with her dirt box full of spuds by the end of it.
What a naughty minx. She'll end up down south of France. The lads howled as they carried on to the pub, still mocking Lynn's campervan fetish.
Right, let's get on it. Pint o'clock.
The trio stumbled into the Nag's Head. The pub was exactly as they remembered. Packed, smoky, and full of blokes who looked like they'd been brawling since breakfast. As they ordered their first round, Pinson proudly announced he'd won a bet earlier that week and was footing the bill.
Big spender, eh? All right, get us a pint of bitter then.
Dean said, already eyeing up a nearby dartboard. Damn right, no problem, Dean. Pinson returned, balancing 3 pints like he was auditioning for new faces. Unfortunately, his talent wasn't balance. His foot caught on a bar stool, and in one glorious slow-motion moment he sent all 3 pints flying, straight into the laps of a group of skinheads at the next table. One of them, a burly bloke with a face like a bulldog chewing a wasp, stood up, lager dripping off him.
Oi, you clumsy tosser!
Sorry, mate, Pinson stammered, but it was too late. The bulldog swung for Pinson and chaos erupted. Chairs flew, glasses shattered, and Dean found himself using a pool cue as a weapon while Baz shouted,
Fucking have it, you skinhead pricks!
By the time the melee was over, Pinson was under a table with 2 very literal broken legs, courtesy of the bulldog's steel-capped boots. Outside, Dean and Baz dragged Pinson out like he was a sack of spuds. Pinson was clutching his legs, groaning.
For Christ's sake, Pinson, you're a bloody liability.
Baz said, lighting a cigarette. I'll never play footy again, Pinson wailed. I was going to go pro... Dean snorted.
Come off it, mate. You were shite. You'd have struggled to make the pub team.
Yes, they argued. Baz pointed down the road.
Oh, look, there's an ambulance. Let's chuck him in and piss off.
They flagged down the ambulance, left Pinson in the care of the paramedics, and headed to the Crown, a quieter pub where they figured they might actually get to finish a drink without a riot. At the Crown, Dean was nursing a pint when he spotted a bloke in the corner who looked like he'd wandered in from another dimension. The man was wearing a bright purple blazer, a sparkly scarf, and had hair so big it looked like he'd stolen it off a lion.
What the fuck is that?
Dean muttered, nudging Baz.
Dunno, looks like a faggot on his way to a panto.
Baz replied, grinning. As if on cue, the man sauntered over to their table, his hips swaying like he was on a catwalk. He leaned down, locked eyes with Dean, and purred.
Hello, handsome. Can you buy me a drink?
Dean nearly spat out his beer.
Piss off, mate!
The man didn't budge.
Oh, don't be shy.
He cooed, trailing a finger down Dean's arm.
You're the cutest thing I've seen all night. I'm Martin.
Dean's face turned crimson, Baz nudging his younger brother.
Can't be having this happening. He's making us look queer. Dean, sort it out.
Right, that's it, you faggot.
He shoved Martin back, but Martin only grinned wider.
Oh, you're feisty. I like that.
Martin said, licking his lips. Dean lost it. He swung a punch that landed square on Martin's jaw, sending him sprawling. As he stood over him, adrenaline pumping, Dean suddenly had a bizarre flash forward of hitting Martin somewhere less traditional. In da bum-bum.
What the fucking fuck was that?
Dean shouted, shaking the thought out of his head. By the time Baz stepped in to break it up, Dean was missing a shoe, Martin's blazer was ripped to shreds, and the landlord was threatening to call the coppers. As Martin disappeared into the night, limping in his torn purple blazer, Dean sat down on the curb, rubbing his knuckles. Baz leaned against a lamppost, lighting a cigarette, barely able to contain his laughter.
Bloody hell, Dean! You just beat the shit out of a faggot in the middle of the pub. Dad's gonna put that story on the mantelpiece.
Dean spat on the ground, his jaw clenched.
Yeah, and he'll probably make me reenact it at Christmas. Go on, son. Show your mum how you lamped the queer.
Baz let out a wheezy laugh.
Might even get you a trophy. Best homophobic punch, 1983.
Dean glared.
Shut it, Baz.
But Baz wasn't done. He crouched down next to Dean, grinning like a lunatic.
Admit it, though, Dino. He had a twinkle in his eye for you. Bet you felt all warm inside, like you'd finally found your soulmate. Got yourself a big old Woody over it.
Dean shot him a look that could kill.
Say another word and I'll bury you right here.
Baz smirked, puffing on his cigarette.
All right. But you didn't have to go that hard on him. Poor bastard's probably walking home right now, crying into his sequins and dreaming about the man who stole his heart and his dignity.
Dean stood up, dusting himself off.
The bloke was asking for it.
Baz snorted.
Yeah, I'm sure he asked to get his arse handed to him by a closet case with anger issues.
Dean's eyes narrowed.
I'm not in the fucking bloody closet.
Baz clapped a hand on his shoulder, grinning.
Course not. You're just renting a room in there, right? You'll come out when you've redecorated.
Dean shrugged him off, muttering.
You're a prick, you know that?
Baz doubled over with laughter, wiping a tear from his eye.
All right. But seriously, mate, what's the plan now? Are you going to call him? Or are we just going to pretend you didn't go full Romeo and Juliet with fists?
Dean turned to him, deadpan.
The plan is to get absolutely pissed and forget this night ever happened. And if you breathe a word of this to anyone, I'll make sure you end up sharing a room with Pinson in hospital.
Baz howled with laughter, stumbling as they started walking again.
Fine. But don't come crying to me when you wake up dreaming about his sparkly little scarf.
Dean muttered under his breath as they headed to the next pub.
What a fucking disaster.
As Dean put the photo down, he said,
Fuck me. The first time I met Martin, I beat the shit out of him. Should I apologize? Nah, bugger that. The poof deserved it.
Join us to continue the adventures by hitting subscribe. If you enjoyed our exploration, give us a like and share your thoughts in the comments below.